Why hello there. Welcome to the 89th episode of Under the Radar. Getting so close to 90s. Woo! Next episode, 90. Once I get past episode 100, as I've been saying, I will be covering all different music not relating to Chicago, where I came from. And I will be intentionally going outside of that radius and expanding my story and the stories of many other musicians that I've come across along the way in my journey. I think it's going to be an interesting time capsule also, just judging by the fact that I started this a month, I think, or a little over a month before the lockdowns of 2020. And so it's already been 5 years. That's crazy. 5 years coming up. So I hope that I will have these 100 episodes wrapped up and I can start the next part of the journey all in the right timing. But before I get into today's episode, I just wanted to again reiterate that the Red Tape is now available on CD in my web store at samswansonmusic.com/store. I also have it for download. You can download all of my albums for free at Bandcamp at samswanson.bandcamp.com. And I just recently put the physical CDs and vinyl and just the physical versions of all the albums that I could find that aren't out of print. Most of them are out of print. I think there's a very limited quantity of all of those, like the Dorm Life and Midwest Blue Days for sure. Those are very limited quantities, as those are my oldest projects. But those are available on the Bandcamp page to purchase physically as well as for free digitally. Or you can go on my website at samswansonmusic.com/store and you can buy the merch there, or go to the music tab and you can find everything there as well, which is hosted through Bandcamp, and stream it, download it, or pay money if you feel like it. Some people have been very generous lately, and it's helped me. It's helped me a lot. So I appreciate that. This series here is just kind of a way for me to, again, give back a little bit and tell the stories of other bands that are very under the radar from my history, I guess, you know. And so I look forward to continuing to letting that unravel and seeing where my journey takes me. But as I get into these last 11 episodes, for sure, of Chicago music, this episode in particular is in relation to a band that I covered in the past. It relates to a band called Empires, which I covered, I think, about a year ago. And the band that Max of Empires was in was a band called Blacktop Mourning. And I believe I showed this CD in that episode, but I wanted to show it again because I didn't do an episode on Blacktop Mourning for various reasons. However, I did recently give this a spin, and I was pleasantly surprised at a couple things. Well, arrangements. You know, it is sort of like a pop punk and emo kind of influenced record. You can hear that in the music, but some of the arrangements, I'll say, I don't know if it was all Max or if it was a collaboration with Marty, or Marty wrote the songs and brought them to Max. I don't know how that worked, but there are some great songs on here. The singer Marty, I would assume that his fingerprint is on some of those chord progressions based on today's release. But anyway, Marty was the original singer for Blacktop Mourning, and then I don't know what exactly happened, but I do know that Marty exited the band for some reason, and this was an 8-song EP, which the layout for it was done by Evan Leake at the Pale Bird, which he did the Academy Is Almost Here artwork, and their original EP, which I've covered in the past. And that will also relate to today's band, because the drummer of the Academy Is, the original drummer, Mr. Mike Del Principe, played drums in this next band, which was formed by Marty of Blacktop Mourning. Real quick, I did realize that this is the original DIY pressing of the Blacktop Mourning CD. So this is before Tyrannosaurus Rex Records signed the band and then had them record 3 new songs. And I believe the guitarist, I don't remember his name, if I looked in the credits I could, but I don't necessarily care enough to, no offense. But he took over vocal duties, the guitarist of the band, when Marty left. And I don't know, I think he re-sang everything, but I might be wrong. I would think that he did. For the release on Tyrannosaurus Rex Records. But I will say, the version that I have after listening to it, there are a couple or a few, maybe 2-3 songs that I really enjoyed in hindsight. And the last song, As Time Crawls By, is probably my favorite on this one. So anyway, Blacktop Mourning, their only release, and this is the OG one with Marty's vocals on it. Have fun finding that on Discogs if you can. I have a copy. If you want to buy it from me, feel free to contact me here. And so that gets me into today's band featuring Mike and Marty, right? The Academy is and Blacktop Mourning together to form this band called Amrita. And what I'll say about Amrita is that this was an era, if I go as far back into my memory, I'll go back to At the Drive-In, like 2000, 2001, Relationship of Command comes out on Grand Royal, produced by Ross Robinson, and the band imploded. Two of them went on to form a band, and then the rest of the band formed Sparta. And so Sparta dropped their first EP on DreamWorks, and then us, meaning like bands that I was friends with, like Y-Intercept. I remember really digging the Wiretap Stars record. But then, about a year later, we got a dose of a different band called the Mars Volta. And Deluged in the Comatorium came out. They had a 3-song EP before that. And that really shaped a lot of music that came out around there. It even influenced bands like, I think I've said this in the past, like definitely RX Bandits changed their sound to a way more progressive rock sound. I don't think anybody could quite do it like Mars Volta was doing, but as I covered in the past, Wax on Radio was doing it to a degree, and Amrita took it to another level, I think. So I thought that this had come out in 2009, but I was sadly mistaken. I like to pride myself in my memory, but I had to look at it, and it was released in 2008. So I technically should have covered this EP last year when I was doing 08 releases, since I'm in 09 right now. But we're just going to do a little retroactive. I think this is worth talking about. So the year's 2008. It was self-released. There are 6 songs on it, and it was engineered by Marty at Rax Tracks Chicago Studios. And I started hearing about Amrita prior to that because ex-member of Midwest Blues Scott Steele was in a band called Minus the Girl, which I always made fun of him for because it was just far too close to Minus the Bear. So I had heard about them through Minus the Girl with Scott because they were tracking their music with Marty at the time he was producing it. And then it would have been maybe August of 2008. I might be wrong. But this was while I was tracking the Boom Juice record, and Dorm Life, we were just kind of barely doing anything at the time. We were kind of having issues, and Mike and I were working on what would become the Yellow album in our time, but like the band was very much broken apart, I would say. So we played one show at the Metro. It was our 3rd show at the Metro, and my sister played with us. Phil showed up. I think we had kicked Ryan out at the time. Phil showed up and played that one. I think this is the last Metro show with like the OG lineup of Dorm Life, but we played the Metro for Amrita's CD release show for this album, and that's where I got my copy. Thank you. I think I was given the copy by Mike, actually. Mike and I remember Mike and I backstage talking about, hey, remember when we used to play together on the stage and you were in the Academy is, and it was kind of a fun little walk down memory lane. But yeah, thanks Mike, thanks for the CD. I know that also in hindsight, before I start covering these songs, Mike was playing in a band called The Attraction with Eli of Best Days Behind. I think I've maybe talked about that band before in the past, and The Attraction. So I think I did play with The Attraction one time with Dorm Life. So this would have been like the second time that Mike and I had played a show together since he had, been kicked out of the Academy is. But make no mistake, Mike's drumming is phenomenal, and the fact that the Academy are celebrating the 20-year anniversary of Almost Here, and they pretty much made a career out of that record without barely any recognition of Mike. That's his sound, so I mean, I don't need to say too much more about that. I'm sure it's fairly water under the bridge right now at this point in all of their lives, but Mike's a baller. We always knew Mike was a baller, and it shows on that Almost Here record. And it shows, I think, even more on this because he spread his wings. I believe I heard him on John Walker's podcast. I could be wrong, but I think John Walker had him on a number of years ago. We're talking close to a decade ago. And if I find a link to that, I think I'll look on YouTube and see if I can find that, just so you can see. But he talked about this being the thing that he was most proud of that he had worked on as far as original music is concerned. And I would agree. I think that the musicianship on this thing, while it's not like, the Academy record is very catchy pop record. It's great, very marketable record. This may not be in that category because we're talking about prog rock, and we're talking about the Mars Volta. We're talking about, again, Wax on Radio and things of that nature, right? So now that I've kind of given you a backdrop of the history of this, again, we're going to get into the songs now. Again, the EP is entitled Innertides, and this is the opening track entitled Innertide.
I've seen all my things inside your head. It vividly tells the story of your doubt. Your doubt. You're down. Oh, yeah. Will it be the air you breathe, or are you dead inside? When you wake up on your own, broken down and all alone, will you take this or choose another lonely road? And I find another way around, and I live another day somehow. Oh yeah. When you got nothing to say, if you can't find a way around.
So I could only play, a smaller portion of that song, but if you could imagine, that is a 7-minute song, and that should say something about Amrita and what they were trying to do. It was about having an attention span for music and arranging the songs. So Marty did excellent on the piano in that song. That song morphs. It's like 4 songs in one. And that's kind of the route I would say our Expandeds did a very similar thing as they were progressing in their albums when they got to And the Battle Begun. It was very long songs as opposed to before. I think The Resignation also had some longer songs as well. But yeah, it's a journey, right? That's very common in progressive rock. So the next song I'm going to play is entitled Shallow Soul.
I'll find a way to watch you feel. Somehow, some way, I'll be revealed. And I'll wait for you.
think this is my favorite song on the EP. It has kind of an ambient sway to it, and really like Marty's harmonies. I think those are fifths that he's doing. I think Minus the Bear uses a lot of those, and so does like Sade even uses like those kinds of harmonies. Oh, Incubus is famous for those harmonies. Little Pink Floyd vibes going on at times. Okay, so one more song. This song is entitled Thieves.
Doesn't matter to you when you're new, that we held the world at our feet. See, you're lost but I can't not our grave. Out in the grave comes a sharp-faced tint of sorrow, waiting to take your life away. Yeah.
That song sort of starts out with a cleaner guitar riff that reminds me of like the second and third Coheed and Cambria records, like kind of that style. Although when it finally does, kick off and erupt, it doesn't feel that way at all. Again, the thing I would compare Amrita to the most would be the Mars Volta, although Mars Volta's far crazier than Amrita. So yeah, I had a great time kind of walking down memory lane. Shout outs to Marty and Mike and Matt and Patrick. Yeah, I'm proud that I got to play the release show at the Metro with Dorm Life for this. That was quite enjoyable that day. I think I have pictures somewhere of that. Certainly have a flyer somewhere. Feel free to go on Discogs and see if you can find yourself a copy of this OG 6-songer. I would be happy to sell you mine if you find me on there, or just contact me through here. Feel free to do that. And in other news, I know the last episode, the Jam Dreams episode, I talked about the Red Tape being out. So I now have the Red Tape available on CD. I have Escape Babylon available on both vinyl and CD. And I have Singularity available on CD as well. And Singularity is actually, I think I have about 100 copies left. I have done very well on the Singularity release. I've done well on Escape Babylon too. There are probably like half the pressing left of that at this current moment. I may have 400 to 500 copies of Escape Babylon, but I think I only have 100 of Singularity. So that is on its way out of print. Thank you to those of you who have gone to my Bandcamp page at samswanson.bandcamp.com and downloaded my albums, paid for them, taken them for free. I don't really care. I mean, I do care. I mean, feel free to give me money. It's very appreciated. Again, this channel is a labor of love, and it will continue to be. And I don't do this necessarily for the money. I do it for the passion, the love. Thank you to those who have gone directly to my website at samswansonmusic.com to buy either of those Slave to Servant releases and a lot of other things that I have: posters, stickers, cassettes, DVDs. I will say that I think in the next episode I will announce another release that's coming out. It's one from my past that I never pressed on CD, and I decided to do a limited run on Alarm Clock. So I'm gonna do about 500 copies, maybe half of what I would normally do. But we'll talk more about that later. Also, feel free, if you are struggling with anything, I am an emotional success coach, and I help people kind of get unstuck out of those problems that they're in or those states that they're in. I help and I utilize your emotions to sort of work for you instead of against you. My sister and I have a website called embracismcoaching.com. We've been getting some reviews from clients lately, so we're starting to get ready to create like a YouTube channel and maybe have some sort of online presence and content that will come out maybe weekly or bi-weekly. But more on that later. Again, thank you for checking this episode out. Thank you for, go back into the archives and watch some other episodes if you want. Like I said, this particular episode relates back to the Empires episode, the Academy is, episodes. And again, I appreciate your viewership. I appreciate your support with merchandise from my website. It means a lot to me that people are listening and getting something. I think we're in a society that is slowly realizing that, maybe it's a good idea to have physical copies of things. And so I will continue to keep that alive as long as I can in some capacity. Anyway, I will be back soon with another episode, and thank you for your time.